Welcome to Relationship Workout for Men, Season 25, Moving Beyond Transactional Dating, Episode 3, We Attract What We Are. Today's guest is Anna Jackson. She's a psychotherapist based in the UK, specializing in everything mental health related. And in this episode, we're going to discuss that individuals tend to attract partners who reflect their own attitudes, behaviors, and values. So what do you think about this, Anna?
I feel like this is mostly accurate. I feel like we do attract what we are a lot of the time, not all of the time. But I think that if you're someone who's like very jealous, you can often attract someone who's not trustworthy. Because if you might not be trustworthy if you're quite jealous, because it might be an internal reflection. And we often attract people who see the world as we do as well.
Well, isn't that see the world as we? Isn't that a part of compatibility? Like if I'm very much on this side of the political spectrum, So how is that challenging for finding the wrong? When I think about choosing a good partner, how is that a bad thing, or how do I navigate that?
So that would be a good element of it. So if we chose someone who saw the world as we do, that would be a good element, unless you have like a distorted belief about something, and therefore you're choosing someone who also has a similar distorted belief about something. So everyone's going to cheat, or we can't take any risks because we'll lose all our money, or, someone who's very fear-based.
How do we migrate that into some of the, like, we all know communication is really important in a relationship, right? But how do we attract, like, I wouldn't say I'm a very good communicator. I'm trying to be better, but I'm not. I don't think as men, there's a stereotype we have troubles listening, or we go right into problem solving. Right? How do we attract who we are if we're not great at communicating, just as a foundational part to a relationship? Like, how does that work? Like, how do I know that you're going to be able to communicate during those hard topics, which we have yet to come across together in a relationship? Like, how do you do that?
Well, there's usually one person is slightly better than the other person. So what will happen in that is they'll pull them up to their level. But what's really important is you don't have to be a healed person before you meet anyone. That's rubbish. But what's important is to be self-aware of your own failings or your own demons. They're also called shadow side. So shadow side is the things that you, want to keep in your shadow. Being angry easily, being jealous, being very anxious about things, being a huge worrier, that kind of stuff where you're like, oh, I wish I wasn't like that, but that I can get like that in certain situations. So that's called a shadow side. Being aware of your shadow side, and then working on ways to get those out of your shadow side and just out of your life in general, if they're things, that you don't want there, which they probably would be. They're called shadow. And then you are coming at a relationship from more of a healed place. Because what often happens in a relationship is it's like holding up a mirror to yourself. All the things that you didn't want people to see end up getting triggered and end up coming out. So that's why being single is usually far easier, because you're far less triggered. And then you get into a relationship and it's like all the stuff that you try to pack down comes out.
I love this shadow side. Like, you made me, I've never heard that term before. You make me think that I should make a list of what's in my shadows.
Yeah.
Right? I've never thought about it. And if I'm dating, what a great way of being transparent, to be able to say, well, here's what's in my shadows. Is that a thing you could do or would do?
Yeah. It's, if you were someone who was really upfront and honest, not necessarily on the first date, but like down the line, you could say, look, I want to be transparent. We all have shadows, right? These are my shadows. I get really bad road rage. I like fall out with my brother over stupid squabbles. I get angry really easily. I have a short temper. I am avoidant in relationships, but these are things I'm aware of and I'm actively working on. Then she might say, okay, cool. How are you working on those? Here's how I'm working on them. So when I feel that level of heat in my body rising up and I want to lash out, I do a quick tune in, see where it's coming from, do some somatic work to release it, and I just run outside, or I just wait for that moment to like pass, because we all have choices. So I'm actively trying to make different choices when I experience the trigger.
Wow, do you think guys do that today? Like, wouldn't that make him look so attractive to the person's on the other side of the table if he's able to articulate what's in his shadow side and then be able to answer the follow-up question of what he's doing to take them out of the shadows? I mean,
this is like a real win. If a man does this, it's like a huge green. We talked about red flag, green flag. This is a huge green flag.
Wow. I mean, I should do that. Like I said, I should do that right now.
Yeah.
How does a guy do that though? Like, how do I figure out what's in my shadows? And I guess it would seem obvious into one sense because I've been with myself my whole life, but like, how does one make that list? Like, if I'm going to say, okay, for the next hour, I want to just figure out what's in my shadows, like, what would I do? What would you suggest a guy do?
That you don't like about yourself. Or ways that you act that you don't like.
Or ways you acted in a previous relationship?
Could be. Yeah, it could be. Could be when you're alone. Doesn't have to be with someone, but it can be, yeah.
What are some examples that you've seen that are in men's shadows? Just to kind of give a menu of potential things.
Being particularly, so we talked about attachment styles, so being particularly avoidant. Poor communication when they feel like their freedom is threatened.
Oh.
Getting angry quite quickly when they feel like, again, they're not being respected, or their freedom is threatened, or they perceive something to be that their freedom is threatened. Shutting down, that would be avoidant. Being quite dismissive. Not valuing a relationship, being quite dismissive if they get triggered by something, or if they feel it's moving too fast, just dismissing it. Not being willing to change certain things unless they feel like it's their decision, which we all want to a point, to be honest, but if you're in a relationship, there is that level of being open to what the other person thinks and feels and meeting in the middle. Yeah, those are some.
And they're degrees, right? I mean, I like, now that we're talking, I'm like, okay, so being defensive and the silent treatment are two that would definitely goes in my shadow list that I've been working on, right? And I don't think I'll ever get to a place of being totally not defensive, but at least I'm trying to be less defensive, right? It's a kind of a journey as opposed to a full stop type thing. So if I was able to create that list and then answer what I'm doing to address those, giving space to like move them during a path. It could take me a lifetime to get better at these certain things. But that would be a huge green flag for a person you're dating to be able to articulate that. And reverse, right? She should be able to articulate what's in her shadow side and what she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about here is two people who are very self-aware and who are open, but it doesn't mean that someone who is just beginning this journey can't be. I think you have to ask yourself, what level of depth in a relationship do I want? These are really tools for people who are looking for deep relationships, deep, connected, soul level relationships.
Right. I think that if if all I want is a good time, then yeah, I don't need to talk about what's in my
No.
other side, right?
Go
But
transactional for a good time.
the transactional thing, right? But wow, what to be able to articulate that, because it's funny how when guys go on their first date, they're trying to look perfect, right? I mean, you dress in your nicest clothes, you tell your best stories, you're trying to look like the perfect person. But what we're saying is, and maybe not on the first date, but pretty soon after, you're actually doing the opposite. You're expressing where you're in a sense vulnerable. You're saying these are my underbelly, these are my soft sides, these are the things that I'm struggling with. And that seems counterintuitive. If I'm trying to attract a lady, why am I telling her my dark side, my shadow side? But in reality, that's actually more attractive, because you talked about self-awareness. And if we're looking at compatibility for a long-term companionship, compatibility, those are the roots, the foundation of it.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, I think we're gonna end the episode now. This is fascinating, the shadow side. I think all guys should make that list, and ladies, or their partners should as well. But
Make it for yourself as well. You don't have to make it only if you're in a relationship. Make it for yourself, and because these are just areas to work on. It feels better when you work on them. Like, it really feels better when things are out of the shadow and like being addressed. Like, it really does. And again, atomic habits, like 1% change on a weekly basis, and you will have a compound effect of something pretty big.
wow, that's great advice. All right, thank you so much. We're gonna end here, and I'll see you in the next episode. We're gonna talk about ask the hard question, which I think is a nice segue into here. All right, thank you so much, Anna.